Hey, so Sony just announced the A7S Mark III, so I felt like we need to talk about the A7S Mark III versus the Canon EOS R5, or maybe even R6. Before we get into the video, be sure to subscribe and give the video a like if you do end up liking it, but let's get to talking about these cameras. Which camera should you buy? Should you look into getting the R5 or the A7S Mark III? Now, I know that I say this every time, but I made a lot of videos on the announcement of these cameras. I'm not really like a news channel or anything like that, but I do feel like this is very important to talk about because my opinion has changed completely after the announcement of this camera. I figured that Sony would release the A7S Mark III. I just didn't know when, and Canon had already had a date. They had already announced their camera. The A7S Mark III has been rumored for the last 5 years. It's supposed to have come out a long time ago, so it wouldn't be a surprise to me if Sony decided to push back that release date. I am just building my career with video, so I want as much quality as I can afford, or that would make sense for me. So getting an R5 for me would make a little bit of sense. It's relatively budget friendly, kind of, but for the most part, when it got announced, I thought that it was going to give me the best image quality possible. Obviously, there are things like Blackmagic and the S1H from Panasonic, but I need more of an everything kind of camera. So I need something that's good for vlogging and maybe photos and client work and a whole bunch of things. So I can't solely rely on just a cinema camera. But if you can, go definitely check out the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. I should be having a video talking about that pretty soon too, because I just recently rented one. But back on topic, so my opinion has completely changed. Sony just announced the A7S Mark III, and it has everything that I would personally need in a camera. It has all of the features that I would even be using out of the R5. Obviously, I am not going to get the R5 just to get 8K video. I don't need 8K. 8K doesn't make any sense to me. 6K, you know, sure, 6K kind of makes sense, but 8K does not make any sense to me. What I was looking at with the R5 is the in-body image stabilization, the fact that you can do 4K at 120 frames per second, and that's about it, to be honest. The gigantic sensor size is a plus too for photos. Let me look at some more specs to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. So that is about it when it comes to the R5. So even if I did get the R5, those are the features that I am actually going to be using the camera, and the reason why I would choose the R5 over the R6 for 4K at 120 frames per second. I do a lot of music videos, I do a lot of things that require slow motion, so to get as much quality as possible in those slow motion type modes is important for me. So I personally don't think that I really fit like the demographic that the R5 is targeting, since they do have that 8K and it's kind of like this real big thing. There's a lot of downfalls for the R5 that people have been talking about, mainly the overheating issue. I think there's also a record limit, but definitely the overheating issue. So in my mind, this makes sense. Canon is pretty early on with mirrorless cameras, so they don't have it completely figured out. Sony was one of the first, if not the first, company to really make mirrorless cameras a mainstream thing, and they've already dealt with the overheating issues, and they've already dealt with all of these issues. So now that Sony has announced the A7S Mark III, that's the camera that I'm gonna go with, which makes sense because I've been filming on Sony this entire time, pretty much. Right now, you're looking at the A6600. I also have an A6400. I have 5100. That's about it. I do have the EOS R, but I feel like my A6600 gives me better image results with video than the EOS R does. I have only been using the R for photos. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I'm not utilizing the EOS R as it should be, but for me, it does not give me the best results, and that does not make me want to give the R5 a chance if the R doesn't give me those results. What makes me think that the R5 will? Whereas my Sony cameras give me amazing looking results, just such as this. And I know that the A7S Mark III is going to be the camera to come out. So looking at some of the specs of the A7S Mark III, it has a 12 megapixel sensor, which you're probably thinking, nah, but it's the quality of the pixels. So they're big pixels, which help in a variety of ways. So they're big, which means that they're high quality, but they're also gonna be really good in low light. That's another thing that I really need, is an amazing low light camera. Since all of my work, it seems like, is done at night, I need something that is just gonna dominate at low light. We have 4K at 120, 10-bit, 422 internal. Insane. A 10-bit codec, insane. 4K 120, that's literally all that I need right now. With 422, there is also the in-body image stabilization. So looking at the announcement, watching some YouTubers that already got to play with this camera, I personally know that I am getting this camera. So should you get the A7S Mark III over the EOS R5? Probably. If it makes sense, it makes sense. I think that Sony has the overheating issues down. So there's no overheating, or very minimal overheating, with the A7S III. There's no record time. This camera takes everything that is good about Sony cameras and just improves upon it. It literally takes all of their cameras and just takes it a step up. So I will be switching to the A7S Mark III whenever it comes out, which means that I'm gonna have to get some new lenses because all I have is APS-C E-mount lenses, but whatever. I am going to stick with Sony. I personally think, unless you have a crazy amount, actually no, never mind. Even if you have a whole bunch of Canon lenses, I would suggest that you switch to Sony too when it comes out. If you're looking for the highest quality video possible, the Sony A7S Mark III is going to get you the highest quality video possible out of a mirrorless camera, aside from like S1H. I think. But the S1H is a whole different conversation, I feel like. So this was that. I would like to say that it's like a first look or first impressions or, you know, something like that. But all I know is that the A7S Mark III just got announced, and I felt like it was important for me to say that my viewpoint on what camera you should get, what camera is really going to be dominating the space, has changed, and I should tell you of that. So go get you an A7S Mark III when it comes out. I'm gonna go get me an A7S Mark III when it comes out. And that's about it. So thank you so much for watching. Do you like the, yeah, nice. That's all that I got. So thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, like the video, and come back for the next one.